So how is Shedeur, now that I've built the suspense, how is Shedeur Sanders like a peach cobbler? Before I tell you, let me set up a few things. You see people talking about, could there be collusion or racism? COVINO, you hit me with the fact right before the show. Of the first round, of the 32 men chosen, how many were African-American?
30 were men of color. 29 were African-American.
So we're talking two white linemen.
Here it is.
That was
the top 3 draft picks were black. 6 out of 10 were black. And again, 29 out of the first 32 were black players.
I made the comment on social media. I did a little post at COVINO RICH that I think there's something we all, not all of us, but the casual non-football fan that just love to jump in on the conversation are forgetting a simple fact about any draft. Teams go after what? Their needs. 27 of the 32 teams.
Their needs, talent, potential, but yeah, their needs is primary, I'd say, yeah.
27, I'd say, of the 32 teams.
And this draft wasn't a quarterback-heavy needed draft.
And arguably, as Dan Beyer pointed out last week, they rated all of last year's quarterbacks higher than the batch this year. So 27 of the 32 teams arguably had no interest in a quarterback. The Buffalo Bills, they got Josh Allen. They're not picking a quarterback. Up next, the Eagles, not picking a quarterback. You could name 27-ish of the teams that have no interest in wasting a pick anytime early on a quarterback. You're the Bengals. You picking a quarterback? You just gave Joe Burrow that money. And you could say that about, again, I'd say 27 of the 32 teams, which means it leaves you 5 teams.
5 teams, and if you rubbed any of those teams the wrong way, now you're cut down to maybe 2 or 3 teams or maybe none at all. I will say this before we get it going. People were screaming racism. A lot of people were screaming that over the weekend because there was the sense of, well, why? But maybe it's as simple as the interview process. Maybe it's as simple as he did blow the interview process. I don't know why, and I don't think it was racism, but I 100% believe something was held against him.
Well, listen,
I just don't think it was the color of his skin.
I said this to you the other day. I think there's nothing cooler than someone with confidence. Remember the other day we talked about the difference between confidence and arrogance when it comes to dating? Regular people at your job. It doesn't need to be athletes. And I said there's that thin line between confidence and arrogance. There were 2 places that these young men hung out while they were waiting for the draft. One, as you pointed out, backstage what looked like an Ashley Furniture warehouse.
It really did.
All dressed up, ready to be called, walking down that sweet long hallway, putting on their Lids hat. And the other option was at home with their friends and family. Shedeur Sanders was the one guy that had a special party room with the word legend on the wall. So that right there you could say is indicative of what this young man brings to the table. And if you interpret that as arrogant instead of confident, then he's not your guy.
Well, you can interpret it as a me type of guy and less of a team type of guy. We don't know that to be true. Be legendary is the family mantra. Legendary is sort of his thing he goes by. Look, I think he rubbed some people the wrong way. I think people have a hard time believing that. And that's why he went 144th in the pick. It was wild to see. No one here, let's get it straight. We've said this over and over again, because when you talk racism and everything else, got to be very clear. Everybody here grew up idolizing his dad. Huge fan of his dad. I go as far back as his Yankee days. I was a fan of his dad.
I'm a 49ers fan that Deion Sanders was the reason the 49ers got over the hump.
So nobody.
I'm a Coach Prime fan.
Nobody rooting against Shedeur. In fact, I hope he uses this as fuel to the fire. And maybe this is life's way of giving him what he needed, which is humility. If that was the problem, if that was the issue. And based on all the reports, or a lot of reports that we're seeing, coaches said he rubbed them the wrong way. I find that much easier to believe than racism when 29 of the 32 were black.
Of the first round. Now, Danny,
the first round,
Danny G, you said you saw a pretty cool thought about the Raiders, who were one of those 5 teams that could potentially have wanted a quarterback.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Dan Beyer and I thought that Jalen Milroe would be a good choice for the Raiders backup. He winds up going to the Seahawks with the pick they got for Geno Smith, so that was ironic. But Charles Robinson, he tweeted this out. He said, Tom Brady knows Deion well, Brady mentored Shedeur, of course. Brady is advising the Raiders on the QB spot, and this was during the weekend. They've passed Shedeur 8 times so far with 6 picks and 2 trade downs. There's zero chance Brady and the Raiders are wielding a Sanders grudge. Zero, and yet they're passing.
Something, I do, again, 100% believe something was held against him. It could be the media circus that surrounds him. It could be his dad. I don't know. It could be the interview process, which we alluded to already. But what I started to realize, too, as the numbers went on and on and on, it became more evident to me that something was going on and that other teams were probably backing off even more because it became more and more of a spectacle and even more of a circus on whoever picks them at that point.
Again, the draft in the NFL, a lot of these guys do end up being part of the team or getting a fair shot. So with that said, you have to keep in mind that people are going after their needs. I saw the Buffalo Bills GM talking about how we went all defense because that's what they needed. Teams go after their needs.
And this was a very lineman-heavy draft because that was the need for the most part.
I think Shedeur Sanders is like peach cobbler. Now, before I tell you how, Dan Byer, did you have any thoughts while you were watching this go down?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of thoughts on it. But the only thing that I was going to weigh in, because you guys mentioned Dion and his role in your guys' lives, I don't think that this is anything new in the NFL where at some point, if the talent doesn't overtake the issues or the distractions, you're not going to invest. If Dion wasn't as great as he was, he wouldn't have gone 5th overall in the 1989 draft. But the Atlanta Falcons felt it was worth it, and sure seemed like it was, and then going on to the Niners and the Cowboys. Eli Manning, the same thing. Like, in terms of if you're the Chargers at that point and he's telling you, don't draft me, and you're like, well, nobody's going to tell me what I'm going to do. Talent wins over. They know that they can then trade Eli and get a bunch of different stuff. It didn't match up with Shedeur Sanders. And I think that story, while it came in a different form or in a different package that we're used to, has gone on in the NFL for decades.
No doubt. And what I love about this story is whether people are saying collusion, racism, this, that, whatever your angle is, or, hey, he just wasn't needed or wanted by those teams. I think the reality is he got drafted by one of the few teams where I think he will have a shot to start at some point next year. So let's say he does get drafted in the 3rd round by the Bengals, or 3rd round or 4th round by the Eagles. He's never going to see the field. He actually ended up in a scenario, one of the few, where this young man could actually start next year and win the job.
That's the silver lining, but on the flip side of that argument, 144th pick, 5th round is a little more expendable.
But if you Covino, get the opportunity, isn't that what the draft is all about?
Yeah.
Getting the opportunity to hit camp and pedal the metal, win this job. And Shedeur Sanders, if he has the talent that we all believe he does, in a quarterback room with Joe Flacco and a couple other young dudes, Shedeur Sanders should, in his mind, be like, oh, I'm going to win this job.
And turn this dilemma into dilemonade. Yeah, we're all excited to see it.
How is he like peach cobbler?
How in the world, Rich? Tell us. How is Shedeur Sanders like peach cobbler?
I always try to think of a dumb analogy, and I know you guys get a kick out of my dumb analogy, so here goes. Let's say you're at a party, and there's a dessert table. Like, Spot, what do you call a dessert table? You used some fancy word before.
Oh, a Viennese table at a wedding.
A Viennese. Look at this guy.
Ooh, with fondue?
All little treats, little petit fours.
Let's say there's little creme brulees.
Little snacky snacks.
Let's say there's cheesecake, cannolis.
On a tower.
Oh, a chocolate. What about a chocolate tower?
Yeah.
Don't mind if I fondue.
Now, there's a peach cobbler at this dessert table. My goodness, you know what, Danny G? You really want a piece of that peach cobbler. But you know you've noticed? No one's really touching the peach cobbler.
Not a peach guy.
But you know what? People are going after the cheesecake and the creme brulee and all the little treats.
All the cookies are going fast.
And as time goes by, you're like...
Actually, I like cobbler.
You know what? Maybe the Browns like cobbler too, but you know what? When you see that no one else is touching it, you're confident that I could sit down, have a cup of coffee, have my cheesecake. I could come back, and I bet you that peach cobbler's still going to be there. And I think there came a point, and I'll give you the point that for me, when the Raiders had back-to-back picks, I believe 98 and 99.
Yeah, they went O-line with both picks.
And they went O-line. And then the next day, when you're like, all right, here we go. We're going to start the day 2 now.
Yeah, 108.
And the Steelers and the Saints and everyone, no one's going. I feel like Cleveland might have said, ooh, I think we want him. But you know what? Much like the peach cobbler, I could come back later.
And it's still going to be there.
And it's still going to be there because if everyone else had a chance to already get a slice of that peach cobbler, and they're not going for it. If by the certain point, you got a chance to look and say, all right, I'm going to make a pick. I pick again, because in the later rounds, it's all mixed up. So a team may have a pick and then 15 picks later have another pick. If you do the math and look in between, all right, well, I know this, they're not going to take Shedeur. So I'm going to fulfill my safety need or my O-line need. And when I get everything I need, then I will pick up Shedeur Sanders.
So what you're saying is Shedeur Sanders is like peach cobbler because even the people that showed interest in peach cobbler made it clear they weren't taking any because they were taking cookies. So you can always come back later.
Yeah, it's going to be there.
It could wind up being a mistake, though. What if you waited too long? You go to the, what did you call it, spot a Viennese table?
Ooh,
and there's just crumbs left, and then your auntie comes over to the table and starts raving about how delicious that peach cobbler was. And
that's the risk that teams took, but I think there were a few teams playing almost like dessert table.
Rich is right.
NFL draft roulette, essentially.
It was evident no one was taking them. And the people that even were interested,
you're playing chicken.
Showed they weren't going to take them.
You're playing chicken at that point. And I think eventually there were teams that were like, all right, we'll take him if he drops to this. They were playing a round of how far could this go chicken because they're like, all right, well, guys, we still need secondary help. Man, I love Shedeur. No one else is picking him. Get that great free safety from LSU, and then we'll come back and get him later. It got to the point where it was almost laughable that pass, that you thought he'd still be there. And I think Cleveland, we may look back in 5 years when Shedeur Sanders, for all we know, he matures into a great NFL quarterback.
And that would be awesome.
And we say, my goodness, did Cleveland play this draft right?
This peach cobbler's fantastic. I can't believe everyone didn't eat it. That's what we're going to say.
What did you do? You ate creme brulee? What a fool.
This peach cobbler's amazing.
My question is,
you had some Jackson tart to get it.
Oh,
hey.
We get a little rim shot.
Hey, I'm going to leave now.
Very good. And also the don't mind if I fondue. Very good.
Oh, you like it?
I liked it. Then why did the Browns load up on apple strudel, with another quarterback? Like, why did they do that?
Because I think plentiful quarterbacks, we learned with Michael Penix Jr. last year, what happened? Kirk Cousins, why would you pick a quarterback? It's a fickle position, my friend.
Oh, and it might be as simple as this. The Giants like Dart. Like, maybe it's as simple as Dart's a better fit for that team.
But why did Cleveland go with another quarterback? That's a great question, Sam.
Now they have 5.
And
I think, Rich, to his point, that's the eye test. For those of us who watched college football, we're like, that QB's not as good as Shedeur. So there's more to this.
That's why I said, Danny G, I don't believe the color of his skin was the issue, but I 100% do believe that something was an issue and held against him.
And I think, again, my guess, and I'm no... that's some blowhard on the radio that's like, here's what's going to happen. But I'll tell you my thoughts. I think, I'm just a doofus on the radio. I think next year.
Pause. You're a doofus in real life, not just on the radio.
No, thank you.
Yeah, let's just make it clear.
Very clear.
Yeah.
I think next year we're all going to be sitting around here in the fall. Me, you, Spot, Danny G, Sam, Dan Byer, and we're going to be talking about. Dan Byer's going to do an update and be like, guys, this just in. Shedeur is going to be starting week 3 of the NFL.
And we're going to be like, yeah.
He gets his chance.
Watch.
Because
gotta watch now.
I think that when you got 5 quarterbacks, they're going to break for camp. We're going to see it sooner than later. And I think it's a great story. Just another reason. I was chatting with COVINO over the weekend saying, like, these stories what the NFL salivates over. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see on who does what in terms of what was the Mary date, whatever.
F Mary kill.
Yeah.
F Mary kill.
You got 5 quarterbacks. Okay, Deshaun Watson's out of the picture, but
I want to marry Joe Flacco. No,
you're not carrying 4.
I know.
So you're likely carrying 3. Are you really going to carry 3 rookies? Are you going to trade Kenny Pickett now to another team after acquiring him if someone needs one? They got an interesting situation that will.
He could go eat chicken cutlets with Tommy DeVito because he's trying to figure out the same thing. Like, what's going on here?
There were national articles this morning trying to stir it up. To DB's point, saying Shedeur could be cut before the preseason's over.
Let's go over it. So we have We have Joe Flacco,
who I think would be a great
mentor,
Yeah,
and a guy that would be
absolutely.
okay taking the back seat.
Yeah, you bring him back after not wanting him back next year. It's almost like a, hey, we messed up. We'd like to, from what he did 2 years ago.
And veteran leadership, won a Super Bowl. It seems like a really good dude.
Yes.
And leader. Joe Flacco. You got Shedeur.
That's it right there.
And then give me the other two. Who we have?
Watson's hurt.
You got Gabriel,
Shedeur,
and Pickett.
Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson.
Man, that is something else, huh? Is Deshaun? Remember the ownership of Cleveland already said they swung and missed on
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson. So it would be shocking
gone.
to see him
Yeah,
play again. So cross him off, as they said in Major League. Cross him off then.
Yeah, you can just not clear him.
Yeah.
Right?
So Deshaun.
So I see, you know who I think odd man out is? In the F, Mary, kill scenario?
Yeah, who's that?
Kenny Pickett? Yes, he can.
Gabriel.
Kenny Pickett?
Well, Gabriel could
Yes,
show up.
he can.
Gabriel could show up to camp and be like, ooh, not what we thought.
It's between those two then. Gabriel and
Cutting a
Pickett.
third-round pick out of training camp is almost unheard of. So,
But check out this dead cap hit for Deshaun Watson, $172.3 million.
Oh, man.
Have you ever heard of a dead money cap hit that size?
You know, crazier things have happened because, you know, when Mel Kiper's head was about to explode and he kept talking about like, oh, in the past, this guy was in this round, Drew Brees was in this round.
He made it uncomfortable. You know, everyone handled it pretty well. Like, hey, Shedeur was picked finally. 144th. We're rooting for him now. Yeah, that was a little odd. Something rubbed someone the wrong way, but hey, we wish him the best. Mel Kiper was still really mad. I don't know if you realized that.
and they're not going to cut Deshaun Watson. They just won't clear him medically. I think like that's ultimately just they're not going to clear him medically and take him off of injured reserve, which could be Deshaun's going to get his money anyway. But still, even if he's out of the picture and like not cut, you still have 4 quarterbacks. So what do you do with the 4 that you have now? Because most teams only have 3. Do you just put Shedeur on practice squad? Like, does that
it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
But if he ends up on practice squad, again, let's be realistic. This is a league of winning, right? If he ends up on the practice squad, it's probably because he deserved to be on the practice squad. Not because anyone has something against him. I don't believe that at this point. He's on the team.
It's a winning league.
It's a winning league. And a league, again, that drafted 29 of the first 32 were African American.
And
now,
you don't think that if you're the Cleveland Browns organization, for viewership and jerseys and fandom, you don't think if Shedeur had what it takes, they would?
If we're going to deal with this media circus,
Let's do it.
We might as well lean into it.